Hey y'all, ain't no need to waste no time. We just gonna get started. I am making a mushroom pasta that my husband requested. This is my second time making it. The first time I made it on live and he went to pick up the mushrooms and they weren't the best quality, so I didn't have as many mushrooms as I wanted to work with. So therefore, the pasta ended up not being what I thought it would be. So this time I decided to go get the mushrooms and we're gonna make the pasta without the creamy Alfredo-y texture we used the last time. He just wants olive oil. So we're going to use olive oils, and I did sneak a little bit of chicken broth in there and a few different little herbs and seasonings to get this going. So first off, you rinse the mushrooms, and I like to pat mine dry. Before that, you saw me going through, getting out mushrooms that weren't up to my liking. I don't eat mushrooms, but if I feel like they don't look like they should, I don't put them in whatever I'm making because if I don't want to eat it, I'm not going to assume that somebody else would eat it. It took me about 6 or 7 minutes to cut this whole set of mushrooms, but we gonna chop this part up and speed it up a little bit so you only get to see just a little bit of it, because to me, cutting mushrooms is like watching paint dry. Like, it's fun when you're doing it, but to watch somebody else do it, yeah, okay. I think now is probably a good time to tell you that you should have the water boiling for the penne pasta or whatever your pasta is of choice. I chose penne because that was the request was, but you could also use linguine pasta, or you could use regular Alfredo noodles for this recipe. It works with whatever kind of pasta you want to use. So have the water boiling, and if you are using fresh broccoli instead of frozen broccoli, you need to get that out and cut and rinsed and blanched as well. I'm going to skip that for this part because I use frozen broccoli, so I just stuck that in the steamer, which you'll see later. So here's the water, and we are ready to put our penne pasta in. I never measure the noodles. I figure if I cook too much, I can always put some aside and use it for something else. And if I don't cook enough, I can always just use the amount of sauce I have for pasta and then make some more sauce later if needed. Give it a stir, and we are all good to let it boil until it gets to, what do they call it? Al dente. Next, we are going to start working on our olive oil sauce. So start with a little bit of butter base because, well, butter goes in everything. And then I use this garlic herb olive oil. That's the Sonoma brand. Heat the pan a little so that the olive oil and butter dissolve into one. You definitely want to be careful with the heat though, because you don't want the olive oil and butter to burn. So I usually start over a low heat and then turn it up as needed. Use a spatula to get everything combined together. And when you've gotten to a point where you've got the oil hot enough, put the mushroom pieces in so they can start to saute. Now, it does take mushrooms quite a while to saute, and it can be kind of tricky to determine when they're done. It's kind of a trial and error thing if you're not used to sauteing mushrooms. So they will let out a little bit of juice from the inside, and so you may initially end up with more liquid in the pan than you thought, but the liquid will soon evaporate away or cook out, and then your mushrooms are done sauteing. At least that's how I tell. I mean, somebody else may have a different way of telling, and that's perfectly fine. To each their own. I'm just showing you what works for me. Now, I didn't have any minced garlic, so I used the minced garlic in the tube, which is more like a paste, but it works the same. So to give the mushrooms some flavor, add that. I didn't measure, knowing that I could always go back and add some more later. Give it a good mix to make sure that the flavor is distributed evenly throughout the dish. And then just let it saute and cook down for a few more minutes. And then we are ready to move on to our next step. Now, doesn't that look good, delicious, and quite delectable? It's time to do a quick pasta check before we move on to prepping our broccoli. Pasta looks good, so next. For the broccoli, I opted for frozen instead of fresh, so put some water in the bottom of the pan and put the broccoli strainer in there, or vegetables. Broccoli strainer, vegetable. Excuse me, I'm having all kinds of issues, y'all. Should I edit this part out? I'm gonna go back and listen to see how it sounds. Put the frozen broccoli in the vegetable steamer and put the lid on the pot. Okay, remember that pot that the mushrooms were in? We took the mushrooms out of that, but we left the olive oil and butter mixture in. We're going to add a little bit more olive oil now. We're getting ready to get our pot ready to put the pasta in. So add a little more olive oil and a little bit of chicken broth. I don't have an exact measurement for the amount, but just enough to kind of coat the bottom of the pan and get a good mixture going with the butter and olive oil. Give it a little mix, and by now you should have drained your pasta and have it ready to add to the pan. So here we go. Scoop out as much as you want to work with at a time. I tend to add in increments, add the pasta, add the mushrooms, season, mix it up, more pasta, more mushrooms, season, and mix it up. Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love to see my food coming together in the pot. So you coat the first little bit of pasta to make sure you get oil and stuff on there, and then you add the mushrooms and mix it up and repeat. Just be sure to look out for the amount of noodles you put in, because you don't want to overwhelm the dish by having too many noodles and not enough mushroom and broccoli to go around. That's one reason that I add in increments. So the broccoli is ready. You can tell because once you stick the fork in, it's very tender. So yeah, get that out. I tend to mash mine up just a little bit before I put it in the pasta so it blends a little easier. Start adding it into the pot and you can see the dish starting to get some color and come together and look real good. So we continue to mix and mix until everything is well mixed and it begins time to incorporate everything. Now, I did a couple rounds of the seasoning, so I'm only going to show one, but it was pretty much the same thing. I started off with salt, and then I used the McCormick's garlic and herb seasoning, quite a bit of it, and then I added more olive oil because that is what the sauce base was, and then this Trade East seasoning mix of Romano Asiago cheese, I think. I got that from Costco, but I added a generous amount of that cheese for sure. Mix, and mix some more. I also put a little bit of butter on top and let that melt in as well. We are coming to the close of how it looks. And when I tell you, I'm extremely proud of myself. Look at that. I didn't even use a recipe. Straight off the dome right there. Y'all not going to tell me that girl can't cook. Look at this. Look at the color. Look at the texture of everything, so neatly and nicely blended. Your girl did her big one on that one. Oh yeah, I will be making this again. It was a hit. My husband loved it. And now I'm going to show you what it looked like once I put it on his plate. Excuse me, what are you trying to tell me? Nothing? Oh yeah, that's right. You can't tell me nothing. Look at that. Bon appetit.